This is Charter Local Edition. My name is Brad Palmer. It's in the nation's capital today, and it's my honor to introduce you to the chair of the Congressional Black Caucus, a member of the U.S. Congress. His name is G.K. Butterfield, and sir, I want to speak with you about the state of Black America, which in a lot of ways is a tale of two cities, tremendous success, but yet in some places, in some regions, tremendous angst. We know over the last year we've seen several young black men lose their lives at the hands of police officers. We honor our police, but something's happening here. Talk to us, sir, about the state of Black America, considering the recent police deaths.
Well, first of all, Brad, let me thank you and Charter Communications for allowing me to come on the set to say a few words to our friends across the country.
Please.
I am the chairman of the Congressional Black Caucus. We are 46 members in number, hailing from 23 states, plus the District of Columbia and the Virgin Islands.
Nice.
Representing collectively over 30 million people.
And my member is a member of your caucus,
yes.
Karen Bass, my congresswoman.
Absolutely. And so our caucus now is at a crossroads.
Right.
You know, our communities are burning, they are hurting, continuing to suffer from poverty as we have down through the years. And over the last 20 years, poverty rates have actually increased in the African American community.
It's really crushing when you look at those statistics. I hail from Los Angeles, and I was in Los Angeles after the Rodney King riots, during them, I should say. And I remember driving down the freeway and seeing my city burning, and yet just a few months ago, Baltimore was burning. I thought the last time we'd see a city burn would be Los Angeles, 20 years ago, but it's not.
Well, the data is absolutely astonishing. We have 45 million people in this country who are living below the poverty level. No one in this country should work a full-time job and live in poverty. We're not that type of country, and we can certainly do better.
But like you describe, when you look at poverty rates, while poverty crosses ethnic lines, it's undeniable that poverty disproportionately impacts those people of color. And that's, I'll take your phone, we can take it off set, impacts people of color. So what can be done about that, sir?
Well, it has to be a collaborative effort. I recall when President Johnson ascended to the presidency after the assassination of President Kennedy, he went before the nation and made a very profound statement, and I brought it with me today.
Please, sir.
He said, many Americans live on the outskirts of hope, some because of their poverty, some because of their color, all too many because of both. Our task, he said, is to help replace their despair with opportunity. And so what we have to do in this, the federal government alone cannot resolve poverty. There has to be a collaborative effort between state and local governments, between nonprofit sectors, between the faith community and the federal government. All of the stakeholders need to work together in order to address poverty head on. We have 384 counties in the United States that have poverty rates that are in excess of 20%, that has persisted for more than 30 years. That data is from the U.S. Census Bureau. And we've got to target funding into these underserved communities. And so the Black Caucus has a program called 10-20-30,
Please.
Where we want to target federal resources in persistent poverty counties. People in those counties have lost hope, they've lost despair, and unless we can reach them and empower them to have better educational opportunities and better health outcomes and better jobs, we're going to continue down this path.
I want to focus on education because, as you know, education clearly is the great equalizer. But what we do know is that African American students are less likely to obtain education beyond high school when compared to their white counterparts. They're less likely to earn a college degree. And in the final analysis, without that advanced degree, be it a BA, MA, or a PhD, it can be difficult to compete.
We will never address poverty unless we deal with jobs and education. And certainly there are some other related areas that we have to touch on. But it starts with jobs and education. Our school systems across the country are failing. They're not only failing African American youth, but they're failing children in general. We've got to invest in 21st century schools. and our states don't have the resources, localities don't have the money in order to build these schools. It's the federal government that must step in and give local communities the ability to build 21st century schools. We have 1.4 million new tech jobs coming online in the next 5 years, but we don't have workers to take those positions.
And it's interesting you talk about the federal government and giving states the ability, local governments the ability to create educational opportunities. And what I've learned as I've gone to different communities throughout the country is that as it relates to the African American community, there is a bit of a split on the question of public schools and how to bring up public schools. Some in the African American community are very supportive of public school education. Others are looking towards charter schools, towards voucher programs as a way to lift up the community. Where does the African American community, where does America go on that tension?
Well, there's certainly a division within the African American community about the value and the role of charter schools. The charter schools in my district are excellent. They're doing great things. The problem is that the public school system must write a check to the charter schools based on a per pupil formula. And the problem is once the student comes over, even if the student only stays a week, that money is non-refundable. And so our public schools need those resources. And we've got to come up with more resources for our public schools, notwithstanding the charter schools.
What about the question of jobs, like you said? Education's key, jobs is key. And what I have learned, sir, is that as we have come out of the Great Recession, our jobless rate is dropping, but not as much and not as fast amongst individuals of color, and specifically African American men.
The black unemployment rate is twice that of the other unemployment rate. And these rates are not just since the recession. Black unemployment in this country has been pervasive. It has existed now for more than 30 years. And so we've got to create jobs. You know, American corporations are doing well. They're making money by the billions, and that's good. I want to empower them to make more.
Of course.
But the private sector has got to do its part in creating jobs in the inner city and in rural communities. You talked about Baltimore.
Please.
Yes, and I cannot miss the opportunity to talk about Baltimore. Yes, we saw the awful violence in Baltimore. We saw the despicable killing of a young African American. But these are symptoms of poverty in the inner city.
But I would be remiss if I didn't talk about, we'll call her our mother. The woman, I'm getting chills talking about her, the woman that we all saw on television.
I look forward to meeting her. I look forward to meeting her one day. Yes.
Who said, "What are you doing?" and pulled her son out of the rioting. I mean,
she did, and good for her. You know, I don't want to editorialize on her
know,
methodology. You know, but the spirit was intact.
Right, and that's in a lot of ways the beauty of the African American community is that family unit. I mean, I don't want to be cliche, but you know, I saw, you know, every mother in her.
Yes,
and how do we harness that love and support, that family unit for all Americans?
Well, hopefully family, you know, is the centerpiece for every American family. We've got to empower families. We've got to create opportunities for families to earn higher wages. You know, so many families in my district, you know, the husband and the wife or the adults in the household have jobs, but they're underemployed. They're making the minimum wage, and they're not able to empower their families. Therefore, our economy could do better if they made a livable wage.
In our final moments, what's the next big goal for the caucus?
The next big goal is to stand strong against the Republican attack on non-defense discretionary spending. We call it the social safety net. There is an awful assault coming from the right wing that wants to dismantle programs that we depend on in low-income communities. And so my challenge is to make sure that that does not happen.
His name is G.K. Butterfield. It's my honor to introduce him and to invite him on our program. He, of course, is the chair of the Congressional Black Caucus, member of the U.S. Congress from the great state of North Carolina. I'm Brad Pomerantz. This is Charter Recognition.